Thank you for watching Hidden Hand. National Park Service, Manzanar, National Historic Site, California. One camp, 10,000 lives. One camp, 10,000 stories. In 1942, the United States government ordered more than 110,000 men, women, and children to leave their homes and detained them in remote military-style camps. Manzanar War Relocation Center was one of the 10 camps where Japanese American citizens and resident Japanese aliens were incarcerated during World War II. Manzanar's gardens and Block 14 barracks, gardens and ponds at Manzanar are symbolic and speak of hope, resistance, and beauty, while the barracks represent daily life in confinement. Japanese Americans at Manzanar. We had about 1 week to dispose of what we owned, except what we could pack and carry for our departure by bus for Manzanar. William Horry. Buses line up on a Los Angeles street to take Japanese American evacuees to camp. NPS photo. Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, December 7, 1941, led the United States into World War II and radically changed the lives of 120,000 men, women, and children of Japanese ancestry living in the United States. An attack intensified racial prejudices and led to fear of potential sabotage and espionage by Japanese Americans among some in the government, military, news, media, and public. In February 1942, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, authorizing the Secretary of War to establish military areas and to remove those from areas anyone who might threaten the war effort. Without due process, the government gave everyone of Japanese ancestry living on the West Coast only days to decide what to do with their houses, farms, businesses, and their possessions. Most families sold their belongings at a significant loss. Some rented their properties to neighbors. Others left possessions with friends or groups, religious groups. Some abandoned their property. They did not know where they were going on or for how long. Each family was assigned an identification number and loaded into cars, buses, trucks, and trains, taking only what they could carry. Japanese Americans were transported under military guard to 17 temporary assembly centers located at racetracks, fairgrounds, and similar facilities in Washington, Oregon, California, and Arizona. Then they were moved to one of 10 hastily built relocation centers by November 1942. The relocation was complete. Waiting in line at the mess hall was a common activity at Manzanar. Dorothea Lange. Life at Manzanar. 10 war relocation centers were built in remote deserts, plains, and swamp of 7 states: Arkansas, Arizona, California, Colorado, Idaho, Utah, and Wyoming. Manzanar, located in the Owens Valley of California between the Sierra Nevada on the west and the Inyo Mountains on the east, was typical in many ways of the 10 camps. About 2/3 of all Japanese Americans interned at Manzanar were American citizens by birth. The remainder were aliens, many of whom had lived in the United States for decades, but who by law were denied citizenship. The Japanese Americans to arrive at Manzanar in March 1942 were men and women who volunteered to help build the camp. On June 1st, the War Relocation Authority took over operation of Manzanar from the United States military. The 500-acre housing section was surrounded by barbed wire and 8 guard towers with searchlights and patrolled by military police. Outside the fence, military police housing a reservoir, a sewage treatment plant, and agricultural fields occupied the remaining 5,500 acres. By September 1942, more than 10,000 Japanese Americans were crowded into 504 barracks organized into 36 blocks. There was little or no privacy in the barracks and not much outside. The 200 to 400 people living in each block, consisting of 14 barracks, each divided into 4 rooms, sharing men's and women's toilets and showers, a laundry room, and a mess hall. Any combination of 8 individuals was allotted a 20 by 25-foot room, an oil stove, a single hanging bulb lamp, cots, blankets, and mattresses filled with straw were the only furnishings provided. Coming from Los Angeles and other communities in California and Washington, Manzanar's internees were unaccustomed to the harsh desert environment. Summer temperatures soared as high as 110 Fahrenheit, and winter temperatures frequently plunged below freezing. Throughout the year, strong winds swept through the valley, often blanketing the camp with dust and sand. Internees covered knotholes in the floors with tin can lids, but dust continued to blow in between the floorboards until linoleum was installed in 1942. One of the hardest things to endure was the communal latrines with no partitions and showers with no stalls. Rosie Kikuchi. Sports provided a welcome diversion at camp. Francis Stewart. Overcoming adversity, internees attempted to make the best of a bad situation. The WRA formed an advisory council of internee elected block managers. Internees established churches, temples, and boys and girls clubs. They developed sports, music, dance, and other recreational programs, built gardens and ponds, and published a newspaper, the Manzanar Free Press. Most internees worked in the camp. They dug irrigation canals and ditches, tended acres of fruits and vegetables, and raised chickens, hogs, and cattle. They made clothes and furniture for themselves, and camouflage, netted, and experimental rubber for the military. They served as mess hall workers, doctors, nurses, police officers, firefighters, and teachers. Professionals were paid $19 per month. Skilled workers received $16, and non-skilled workers $12. Many pooled their resources and created a consumer cooperative that published the Manzanar Free Press and operated a general store, beauty parlor, barbershop, and bank. As the war turned in America's favor, restrictions were lifted. The Japanese Americans were allowed to leave the camps. Church groups, service organizations, and some camp administrators helped find sponsors and jobs in the Midwest and East. From all 10 camps, 4,300 people received permission to attend college, and about 10,000 were allowed to leave temporarily to harvest sugar beets in Idaho, Montana, Utah, and Wyoming. A total of 11,070 Japanese Americans were processed through Manzanar. From a peak of 10,046 in September 42, the population dwindled down to 6,000 by 1944. The last few hundred internees left in 45, November, 3 months after the war ended. Many of them had spent 3.5 years at Manzanar. The removal of all Japanese Americans from the West Coast was based on widespread distrust of their loyalty at Pearl Harbor, yet no Japanese Americans were charged with espionage. Manzanar has its first Gold Star mother. We had dreaded the day when some family at Manzanar would receive the faithful telegram. Manzanar Free Press article on PFC, Frank Arikawa's death. Soldiers from Manzanar served with great distinction in the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. Ansel Adams. Loyalty and service. About 5,000 Japanese Americans were serving in the U.S. Army when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor in December 1941. The United States military soon called for another 5,000 volunteers from the mainland and Hawaii. In January 1942, however, the Selective Service reclassified Japanese Americans as enemy aliens and stopped drafting them. Emotions were intense during 1942 as the United States entered the war and Japanese Americans were moved to the relocation centers. Various protests and disturbances occurred at some centers over political differences, wages, and rumors of informers and black marketing. At Manzanar, 2 people were killed and 10 were wounded by military police during the Manzanar riot in December 42. Tensions intensified in 43 when the government required internees to answer a loyalty questionnaire. They were asked if they would serve in combat and if they would swear unqualified allegiance to the United States. Some older internees answered no because they were not allowed to become U.S. citizens. Others refused to serve while their families were behind barbed wire. Those who answered yes were considered loyal and became eligible for indefinite leave outside the West Coast military areas. Those who answered no were sent to the segregation center at Tule Lake, California. In January 44, the draft was reinstated for Japanese Americans. Most of those who were drafted or volunteered joined the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, combined with the 100th Infantry Battalion of the Hawaiian Territorial Guard. The 442nd fought with distinction in North Africa, France, and Italy, with 9,846 casualties. The 100th and 442nd had the highest casualty rate and was the most highly decorated Army unit for its size and its length of service. Nearly 26,000 Japanese Americans served in the U.S. military during World War II. Chronology: 1869, first known Japanese immigrants to United States settled near Sacramento. 1913, alien land law prohibits Japanese aliens from owning land in California and imposes a 3-year limit on leasing of land. 1924, Immigration Exclusion Act halts Japanese immigration to U.S. 1941, U.S. enters World War II after Pearl Harbor attacks December 7th. 1942, Executive Order 9066 of February 19th authorizes relocation and or internment of anyone who might threaten the U.S. war effort. 1943, U.S. Army forms 442nd Regimental Combat Team, a segregated unit for Japanese Americans that serves with 100th Infantry Battalion in Europe. 1944, Supreme Court upholds constitutionality of evaluation based solely on national ancestry while separately ruling that loyal citizens cannot be held against their will. 1945, World War II ends with Japan's surrender August 14th. Manzanar War Relocation Center closes November 21st. 1952, Walter McCarran Immigration and Naturalization Act allows Japanese aliens to become natural citizens. 1972, Manzanar designated a California registered history. 1988, United States Civil Liberties Act grants a $20,000 payment and an apology to 82,000 former internees. 1992, Manzanar National Historic Site established March 3rd. 2001, Minidoka Internment National Monument designated. January 17th in Idaho, National Japanese American Memorial dedicated. June 29th in Washington, D.C. 2004, Manzanar National Historical Site Interpretive Center opens April 24th. Thank you.